As you know, reptile expos are probably one of the best places that you can get reptiles and amphibians as pets. I've gotten 4 of my animals from Repticon, which is a reptile expo that goes around the country, and in North Carolina where I live. This is my sand boa that I got last year. They're definitely great places to go and get your animals, but today I have 6 tips for you that you might want to consider when going to the expos. Firstly, be ready to ask lots of questions. Hopefully the breeder you're buying from will be willing to answer them because they want to, well, 1, get your sale, and 2, hopefully they really do want to help you out. So online you might see people will have their ASL or age, sex, location if you want to like date someone or something, so they know the basics about you. And you can kind of use the same thing when you're asking questions about the animals. What's the age of the animal, the sex of the animal, and the location of the animal, as in where that animal originated, whether it was wild caught or captive bred. I did a video talking about these things thoroughly, but a very general summary of these is younger animals are easier to tame, female snakes will get bigger while male lizards get bigger, and you want to go with captive bred animals. Again, that's very general, there's lots of things to know about that, which I talked about in another video. In addition to this, a big one is if you're getting a snake, ask if it's eating, or ask exactly what it's eating, whether it's eating frozen thawed or live, and what size, whether it's mouse or rat, and everything like that, because a lot of people don't, and then they get stuck with an animal that turns out to only eat live animals when they didn't want to have to go and buy live mice. There is no guarantee that your snake will continue eating what it was eating before. That kind of goes with all reptiles because they can all change, but generally it's going to be way easier if you know ahead of time exactly what it's eating. In addition to these, I'm sure there's plenty of other questions that are possibly going to come up, so definitely consider asking breeders there before you buy the animal, because it's a pretty big commitment. The second thing you should consider doing is handling the animal before buying it. I'm pretty sure I handled every animal I bought before actually paying for it. This can't go for every animal, like aquatic animals, salamanders and frogs and things you probably don't want to handle. But things like snakes and lizards, hopefully the breeder will let you actually get hands-on with before, so you can really see for yourself just how docile the animal is. So their temperament might vary a little bit just because they're in a weird environment. There might be a lot of noise depending on the animal that it might affect it. But overall, it's nice to be able to actually hold it there so you know what you're getting yourself into. I don't think I would ever really consider buying an animal if they didn't actually let me take it out and handle it. They might get a bit nervous if they don't, well, 1, they don't know who you are, but hopefully it's something that they're willing to do and supervise if it's something you're looking at. The third one is don't necessarily trust everything the breeder is going to say. This sounds kind of bad, and most of the time they are pretty trustworthy, but keep in mind they are only one source, kind of like just this channel is just one source, so you want to check multiple things beforehand and have the research ahead of time. For example, when I got my ball python, I was saying I was planning on keeping it in a 20-gallon its whole life. I was like, is that fine? They're like, yeah, 20-gallon works, it's fine. Which I guess it might be depending on who you ask, but a lot of sources say that they need something bigger. I put their knowledge ahead just because I actually met them in person and thought I could trust them, and even if they weren't telling me a lie on purpose, they might not always be right. Another example is when I was getting my blue-tongued skink, I asked another booth that was selling a blue-tongued skink more about their diet so I could just know more about it. He said, yeah, I just feed on mine the like chicken liver and beef blue buffalo dog food from Target, it's fine, and that should work, you can just buy that. So I was like, okay, that's easy enough, that should work. And I did do that for a couple of weeks, but then I actually kept doing my own research because it's important too. I wasn't the best keeper at first. So again, they're not necessarily telling you false information on purpose. Sometimes they might just because they want the sale, and if something sounds easier, you might be more inclined to buy it. And at the same time, it's just good to make sure you actually ask multiple people or check multiple sites or sources. Number 4 is you can consider trying to save some money by negotiating. A lot of breeders will just not. They're strictly going by the prices they have written down. Others will be a lot easier about it, and they might give you a little bit of money off. So try and be as nice as possible while you're talking to them so that you make a good impression and maybe you can save a couple bucks. There's a good chance that they won't agree to it, but I have saved a little bit of money. I think I got $20 off my leopard gecko. So it's a possibility. I'm usually scared to talk to people. I try and avoid as much conversation as possible, but if it's to save money, it's probably worth asking. Number 5, reptile expos are going to be home to mites and ticks and fleas maybe. Lots of different things. There's lots of breeders there. They might all be that responsible. People also bring their own animals that might have parasites or things like mites. So it's really not something you should worry about. I don't want you to stress over it, but it is something to think about. When I got my first ball python there, he did come home with mites. I don't know if he got it from the breeder that I purchased it from. It could have been the breeder next to them where because they were there for a couple of days, they could have snuck some mites. Well, they didn't sneak some mites over, but some mites might have snuck themselves over for some new hosts. So some things you should consider doing is while you're there, actually check the animal yourself. You can look up what mites look like, and you can try and see if there's anything on the animal as you're handling it. Most of the time you're probably going to be fine, but if people do come home with animals like this is one of the reasons you want to consider quarantining the animal when you bring it home in something that's away from any other animals you may have, just because you don't want to infect your entire collection. Or if it's just your first animal, not as big of a deal, but still something you should consider. At the same time, you might want to wash your hands or use hand sanitizers that a lot of the people will have there in between handling different animals, because one, illnesses aren't fun between animals, and two, because you can try and get rid of any mites and things. But then after you buy the animal, you might not want to take it out right then. I really wanted to handle my animals right as I bought them, but I knew it would be best to actually wait and keep them contained until we're back home and really got everything settled and the animal could calm down from the expo. And then with that said, you might not want to take your other reptiles there. Like if I were to go back to an expo, I considered bringing Sunny along or something just for the ride, for a little exploring to meet some other people, but I'd rather not have the chance of mites, so I keep all my animals here at home when I go to them. And number 6, impulse buying is really easy at expos. You're surrounded by hundreds of really cool animals. A lot of them are often at really good prices. You might be able to get 2 for a cheaper cost and things. And in the heat of the moment, it's really easy to spend extra money, but you just have to keep in mind that you are buying something that's gonna last a long time and might cost you a lot down the road, like most animals will. What I do is I limit myself to 1 animal per expo. When I went to the expo with her, I told myself I was just getting supplies and looking. Here we are with the Kenyan sand boa. When it comes to impulse buying, I'm not sure if I'm a great example because I am guilty of doing this. I did do all the research actually in the expo on my phone just to make sure I had all the supplies. But trying to set boundaries for yourself might be a good idea. Some people will go and buy multiple animals at an expo, which a lot of them you probably watch, and they do a great job. Everything is good and healthy. Personally, I feel overwhelmed if I'm considering more than 1 at one time. So it's good to try and do everything in advance and prepare and know that you're only getting 0 to 1 to 2 to whatever animals you're getting. I suggest that you just get 1, but again, tons of people buy multiple at once and do a great job. And with that said, you might see something there where it's such a good deal or something super rare, but chances are you can find it again. If you're not 100% determined to get the animal, but it's just such a nice deal or super rare, you might end up regretting it down the road. Maybe you won't, but chances are you can find the animal somewhere else. Even if it does cost you a little extra, it's possible that'll be a better option so that you don't get stuck with something you're not too happy with. So those are my 6 tips on what you can think about before going to a Reptile Expo. Again, they're super fun, they're really great. A lot of people there are super helpful, and it's a really cool environment to be in. It can be a bit overwhelming with so many animals, but hopefully you'll be able to enjoy it. If you've already been to them, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And if you're not sure where to get a reptile, consider seeking out some expos. If you're in the US, there's things like Repticon and NARBC and Reptiday and some others, but they are all around the world in certain countries. So try and check them out. Even if you don't want to buy a reptile, they're cool to attend. Make sure you leave your other things or other tips for people before they go to a Reptile Expo. Maybe we can make a part 2 of this if there's enough reasons. But either way, I'd like to hear your opinions and suggestions on that. So that'll be it for this video. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.